My motivation for doing a Nuffield Scholarship was to overcome the tunnel vision, which is the day-to-day perspective we see as top fruit growers. Many of my findings could be applicable across all agricultural sectors, so don't fall asleep. I found lots of global challenges, mainly to do with costs. Then, following that, sustainable and biological options, and finally, a return to the core, excuse the pun, healthy fruit values. None of this would have been possible without the support of my wife, Mandy, and daughter, Lauren. Also, the blind faith accorded to me by the Nuffield Scholarship Trust, my sponsors, the Three Counties Agricultural Society, and a worshipful company of fruiterers. My studies started pretty badly. It seems that a humble apple is no longer the sole temptation to mankind. Even Wikipedia lists Apple Computer Inc. ahead of Apple the fruit. I travelled to many Mediterranean climates on my travels and returned to Herefordshire to find it is not one of those. When you see 110 tonne per hectare yields compared to our record 80 tonne per hectare, it's a sobering thought. At the IFTA conference in Chile, we learnt that global prices paid for apples have lagged seriously behind the global inflation of costs. Also, that by 2020, increased demand for apples will lag behind increased supply. Cherries are now available 12 months of the year round, and so their market will become less opportunistic and far more regulated. So in New Zealand, I found an industry that was massively consolidated in grower numbers and facing uncertainties because of the European retailers. That's what they said. In China, they have a massively disparate supplier base and inherent quality issues. The Australians are reeling over the lifting of import restrictions and the strength of the Australian dollar. Chile has a booming economy. They've planted massive amounts of cherry and apple orchards, and the problem is they're a long way from anywhere. So they've got big issues with the cost of energy and labour, which is increasing by 20% year on year. Argentina has also got a lot of labour issues, and the Brazilians are fighting against a very complicated climatic condition. In fact, one grower was on his 42nd spray round for that season when we went there. And this is all to ride the wave of domestic demand in Brazil. So what can we do? Well, mostly I found that efficiency savings cost really just serve to merely defray the cost increases. The biggest concern globally was the cost of labour, and particularly at harvest time, which is why I was very interested in this robotic kiwi fruit harvester being developed by Massey University. It's capable of harvesting 10,000 fruit per hour, and if you'd like to compare that with the less efficient circus act that is picking fruit in Argentina off 8-metre trees, then you can see where we're at with top fruit. I did come across free labour, which I thought was a great thing, but once I engaged with these guys called woofers and realised how engaged and knowledgeable they were, I took this as a note of inspiration as to how I might motivate my staff in future other than the pay packet at the end of the week. And finally, on my travels, I was constantly reminded that intensive, efficient, newly planted orchards are far more cost-effective than the old style. The next logical step is to mitigate cost increases across added value. This is Antonio Wacker. We met him in Chile, and he showed me 1 million apples, which he had covered with UV filters and white bags. These rosy red apples demand a premium of $7 per case. The Chinese have taken this a step further, and they've embossed a logo on their apples. Unfortunately, their marketing is in some need of refinement. More value-added, pink flesh apples in Holland, Brazilian kids' apples, well, you know where that is, and I vaguely remember a very Moorish Creek cherry beer in Belgium. So, Finally, cost savings downstream of the supply chain give us a bigger target to aim at. Let me give you an example. The cost of getting an apple from an orchard in New Zealand to the ship is 3.5 times that paid to the growers for that apple. Little wonder that the New Zealand growers, every single one of them, had involvement in processing or packaging. I also saw lots of other examples of vertical integration. The seminal moment in my Nuffield trip happened when Julian Raine suggested I return to the Marlborough area in New Zealand, where viticulturists can tell us an awful lot. Peter Yealands is an unconventional character who belies the £30 million investment in his growing business. He places zero carbon as a starting point for all his sustainability objectives. Whether his ideas are to bale prunings to burn, or to ship wine in bulk to Europe and bottle there, or to use plastic bottles, he's always full of good ideas. Perhaps his most interesting is to run baby doll sheep in his vineyards to save on mowing. With thick necks and heavy heads, the baggers won't look up and eat my vines, he told me. Sorry about the Kiwi accent. He did actually start with guinea pigs, hundreds of guinea pigs, but the falcons dined out on those. And latest idea is coon pigs in his orchards, vineyards even. On arriving at the Saracen estate, Colin Ross told me that good wine is a reflection of the land on which it is grown. Saracen is run on biodynamic principles and as a normal complement of compost tea brewers, compost heaps, wormeries, and all the paraphernalia. I agree with Julian in that we didn't understand what they were doing, but they were doing something right. Whether it was the biodynamic wizardry or just pure anal attention to detail, I suspect the latter, but I left realising that I had to understand a bit more. Incidentally, I noticed this horse-drawn spray cart as I left, which amused me because when I was in Argentina, this was built in New Zealand in 2010, and when I was in Argentina, I saw this one built by the English in 1901. So, if I had a TARDIS, a Nuffield TARDIS, and John Stones was the Time Lord, I said the Doctor, soon to be morphed into the Colonel, the meeting I'd most like to revisit is that with Edouard Perry at Massey University. He's studying the dynamics of carbon in apple orchards, and it wasn't until months later that I realised, or I think, there's a huge opportunity for agriculture to spearhead the sequestration of carbon into the soil. So I changed my tack, and the next 3 weeks was geared around the excellent NTS Certificate in Sustainable Agriculture in Queensland, Australia, where I really got to grips with making a link between the quality of the food we eat and the health of people that consume it. They say that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Unfortunately, the USDA have information in their database that suggests that over 40 years, we have lost 40% of the nutrient value of apples. This picture was in a department store in Sydney, and it depicts a lifestyle, looks like depicting eating apples, but in fact it's for selling perfume at £50 per pot. So I didn't show my wife this slide because I didn't buy her any. I was tempted. So the point I was going to make was that there was a guy a soil scientist in Adelaide called Brian McLean, whose belief is that it's not the chemicals in food that's causing health issues, it is actually the lack of nutrition. And this is backed up by the World Health Organization, who've done a global study, and they were shocked at the amount of type B malnutrition in the developed world. This guy is a fruit grower from the Canadian-American border. He can't understand why people don't want to buy his healthy apples. At the Chinese agricultural trade fair, traditional health remedies were very, very prominent. At the Brisbane Food and Drink Wine Show, cider was the latest sensation. Healthy food and local food were also very prominent. I followed a well-trodden Nuffield path to Kim Green's biodynamic cherry orchards in the Adelaide Hills. And his take-home message at the moment is that biological soils are 3 to 4 degrees warmer than conventionally farmed ones. Up the road, Scott Samwell grows sprouts, and I was staggered that he could do that for the Christmas market in Australia. His very pragmatic approach to growing nutrient-dense foods, and the most pertinent point he made to me was one that he quoted from Gary Zimmer, saying, organic farming is marketing-oriented based around what is excluded, whereas biological farming is all about what is included. So I want to tie some conclusions together. I've only got 12 minutes. So modern planting systems are required with new root stocks, novel varieties, and diversification into alternative fruit. So if you're on a hill, grow late cherries. Where possible, integrate to cut out upstream costs. You want to review biological techniques for cost and quality benefits. And finally, give fruit a health check to reinforce this and by informing the customer what we are doing for them. Since embarking on the Nuffield study, I've constructed a 1,800 bin controlled atmosphere storage. I've started to build a processing area, which is my Olympic legacy. I found some food-grade panels on the back of a lorry that had made the warehouse for the Olympics or something, and so that was a little bit of a win. At the NTS course, I managed to persuade a Kiwi girl to come over and do some biological trials for me this summer, and I've got a little agroforestry trial which would delight Stephen Briggs, who will speak to you tomorrow about that, in one of my fields. I'm going to propose a new perspective for top fruit growers. Instead of tunnel vision, we want to have an aerial view, as advocated by Dr. Dare at Special Scientific, who uses technology to look at trees from above. We want to treat trees individually like dairy cows. And finally, thank you for listening, and a special thanks to John Stones, wherever he is. Thank you, John. This isn't a good luck card, it's actually an invoice, so can you pay it before you leave, please? Apples, but if you weren't interested, read my report, read my blog, and view my photos all via the Nuffield website. Thank you.